ScotWeek is a non-profit 501c3 created in Los Angeles, the entertainment capital of the world. ScotWeek's mission is to celebrate and perpetuate the very special relationship between Scotland and the United States, as well as modern Scottish culture combined with traditional Scottish history. ScotWeek was created to shine a spotlight on Scottish contributions not only in the U.S., but throughout the globe, by highlighting Scotland's rich history of art, music, film and television, business and innovation, travel, food, and drink. As a charity, ScotWeek provides educational and internship opportunities through our partnerships with the Scottish Business Network, Entrepreneurial Scotland, and the Saltire Foundation, all with the support of the Scottish Government. In this series, we'll go behind the scenes of entertainment and industry as we interview our favorite members of the Scottish community. Get a first-hand look at the cultural contributions of the Scottish diaspora and travel with us around the world on an exciting journey to experience all things Scottish.
Hi, I'm Cindi McIntosh.
And I'm Kelsey Deanne.
And this is ScotWeek.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is ScotWeek's Scottish Brews and Spirits in the U.S. panel, and we're so happy to have you join us, Kelsey.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. And we are so excited today. This is probably going to be the funnest panel, if that is a word, funnest, if I can be true American and butcher grammar. But without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. They're going to go around and introduce themselves. But we have Alastair and Dan and David, Nicholas, and Jennifer. So Jennifer, ladies first, tell us about yourself.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here today. I am the single malt specialist for the Dalmore, which you see next to me, and Jura single malts. I work for a company called White & Mackay, which is based in Scotland and down in London. They are most famous for blending, but they also work with the single malts Tamnavulin and Fettercairn. I am located here in sunny Los Angeles, so I don't get any of that super wet Scottish weather. It's like a dry desert out here, but shockingly, Los Angeles is one of the most major hubs for purchasing and consumption of single malt whiskey. So it's a very important place to be.
Wow, interesting. Nicholas, tell us about you.
My name is Nicholas Pollacki. I am the CEO of the Whiskey Dog, and we do a ton of private events for whiskey brands and private collectors. I am a contributor to CNBC for rare whiskies and an alternative investment. And my house is also a hub for whiskey consumption as well, Jen. So that's where I'm based in New Jersey in the East Coast. So unfortunately, I do get 4 seasons. I'm not getting the sunshine all year round, but delighted to be here and sharing a dram of whiskey with you all.
And before you go on, you're one of the 2 people in this panel that have Scots accents. So where in Scotland are you usually from?
I'm from Dumbarton, which is in the west coast, just outside of Loch Lomond. But the closest city is Glasgow. That's what people know for. So, yeah.
Oh, very cool. Oh, no. So 3 people have Scottish accents. I'm so sorry. David, tell us about you.
Actually, if you ask people in Scotland, they'll say I don't have a Scottish accent anymore. So don't feel bad. My name's David Laird. I'm the luxury specialist for William Grant & Sons out here in Los Angeles. So essentially my job is looking after all our old age spirits, or 21-year-old whiskey. There are also things like Hendrick's Gin and Milagro Tequila and Tullamore Whiskey, which is all owned by the William Grant family. So still that family-owned company. And I'm out here in Los Angeles, so I get to go around Beverly Hills and Santa Monica and Malibu and play with really nice Scottish whiskey that we make over there. So yeah, this is it's been a long journey. I've been with them 7 years, and this is we're definitely it's peaking now. So I'm quite happy where we are.
Oh my goodness. And Alastair, another Scot, tell us about you.
Yes, I am a Scottish immigrant. I've been here for 35 years. I can do a Scottish accent when it's required, but outside of that, I sound quite English, really. my grannies were both born in England, and my parents, they were English, and my parents were both born in England. But I was raised in the West Highlands of Scotland, near Oban. And I came to America, married an American, and she wanted to open a brewery. So we, 6.5 years ago, we opened McLeod Ale Brewing Company in a part of Los Angeles called Van Nuys. And that's where one of the many Budweiser plants are. We're the second largest brewery in Van Nuys. It's our slogan. That's it. We do we have lots of Scottish beers, English beers, but we do everything. We do beer, wine, and cider. We make all the beer. We buy in the rest. And yeah, be great to see any of you here. Like Jennifer, you're so close.
I am. Unfortunately, I'm allergic to beer.
I'll tell you what, we have Aspall cider all the way from Suffolk, and we have red and white wine from Paso Robles.
Okay, don't twist my arm. I'm there.
Okay.
Very cool. And Dan, our honorary Scot, because you have so much whiskey in you all the time, and you're amazing. So Dan, tell us about you.
Yeah, so I'm not Scottish, as you can probably tell, but I used to sort of represent Scotland. So in my old life, I was a diplomat for the British government, and I was known as a sort of specialist for whiskey diplomacy. And we used to host a lot of tastings and try and promote Scottish exports across the world. Since I've left government, one of the things I now do is host a podcast called United States of Dramerica. And each week we interview a guest while drinking a whiskey. So we're promoting Scotland unofficially now, and actually looking across the panel, all but Nicholas have actually appeared on my podcast, although the episodes with Kelsey and Cindi never made it to air because unfortunately the global pandemic started before ScotWeek got the chance to. So I've had everyone on the podcast and a whole load of other guests.
We'd be happy to do it again. It's not a problem. So with that, so let's get into the whiskey talk just a little bit here. And I know that Alastair owns the most wonderful brewery in Los Angeles, and I love all of the beers that you have there, and we'll give you a chance to talk about that. But he also knows a heck of a lot about whiskey, has quite a collection himself. So what sets Scottish whiskey apart from other whiskeys or bourbons around the world? And so we'll just kind of, I know that there's a lot, that's a big question. And if you all just want to take a moment to kind of answer that from your point of view, Jennifer, what do you think?
Oh, of course I have to go first. I mean, that's just, you know, I think some of it is perception. I think outside of Scotland, which is not to say it's not respected inside of Scotland, but it is held on this very, very high platform as the pinnacle of what we accept as whiskey making. A lot of the whiskey making in the US is still a little rough and tumble. It's still sort of figuring out its flavor and its category. Probably the most established, of course, is bourbon here in the US. Excuse me. Sorry, I have something stuck in my throat. But I believe so much that when you look at not only the incredible rich history, but I would dare say the mystery surrounding specifically single malt Scotch, it just is a category that I think is perceived as very romantic and very luxurious. And that alone, of course, can create this mystique that when a person walks into a bar and sees this stunning Scotch collection or single malt collection, what they're really perceiving is history and purpose in the making of it, and this idea that it sets the standard. So for me, I mean, single malt Scotch, I mean, I have to say, every time I see a wall full of bottles, it reminds me of all the people I love that work in the industry that are at the top of their game. So I think those two things combined, a little bit of mystery and history, and a little bit of some of the greatest people in the whiskey game speaking to the category.
Yeah, I think just to follow on that with it, when you speak to somebody and you tell them that you work in single malt whiskey, you get that little, that you must do some fun things. There's something out there. But the other thing I think is really kind of sets us apart a little bit is the flavor differences you get in single malt whiskey compared to other whiskies. I mean, there's great bourbons, great ryes out there, but there's a lot of similarity in flavors. But the single malt whiskey, it goes from the range of super peaty to light and floral to a nice little fruity whiskey to all these different flavor types that once you get into single malts and into Scotch whiskey in general, it takes you on this journey. And for me, it's the variation and differences that all these different distilleries can produce that really captivates people and gets them really into wanting to learn more about it and start collecting and enjoying different things.
I think as well that something that you both touched on, that we're history rich in Scotland. There's a spectacular array of amazing buildings that you can go to that are hundreds of years older than this country, as established as it is now. And that's, especially for Americans, I think they really enjoy, latching onto that history and understanding some of it, because there are so many immigrants here, if they trace their bloodlines back, that will have Celtic roots. And that's something that they enjoy understanding and learning more about. And it's quite exciting, actually. I think a lot of Scottish people probably don't spend the time and attention dating back their family histories the same way Americans might do. And I think it's because that there is so much depth in the history side of things, and that allows you to then explore the distilleries that have been a part of that history. So it's quite an adventure, whether you like a particular flavour from a distillery or not. The story that they've got to tell is equally as fascinating as the whiskies that you love the most. So I think that's part of the fun.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the word story there. I think that's a big part of it, is this sort of storytelling part of it. So there is, I think Jennifer used the word romantic. Certainly, when you're looking to choose a whiskey, there's a whole narrative you can think about of, the beautiful distillery and the backdrop, the TV shows that you've watched. I mean, Outlander's done wonders for whiskey sales and Scottish tourism. I remember when we were working for government, we talked to, particularly on the luxury end of the whiskey, people would talk wonderfully about flying over to the UK, playing golf, going hunting, then drinking a whiskey in the cold and the wind. And I think that whole thing comes together. And obviously not everyone's going to be flying over to do that, but it all sort of leaks down from there. And there's something about the story, the history, the flavour, the backdrop. Plus, obviously, the drink itself is wonderful, but I think it's the whole story behind it which makes it so appealing to people.
I can attest, as an American, two things. When you go to Scotland and you're staring at a castle that's 1,000 years old, it really puts into perspective how young our country actually is. And secondarily, single malt tastes better in Scotland. I cannot tell you why, but it does.
Alastair may know the answer to that question.
Yeah, well, absolutely, because I've been away from Scotland for so long. And as a child growing up, I left when I was 24 years old. And growing up, I never ever thought of going to a distillery. I went to Oban High School for a couple of years. Never thought of going to the distillery or really anything like that. But having been away, and then even although I'm in the beer industry, what we do barrel-aged beers in whiskey casks. We can get any cask we want. The one that was the most interesting was we got a couple of Lafroig barrels, and we put a Scottish ale in there, and it was very good. The smoke really came through, and the oak and everything, and that was a wonderful sort of whiskey twist on a beer. We've done quite a bit of that, usually with bourbon and so forth. But actually, as a matter of fact, we took all three of our employees from the brew house. We took them to Scotland last summer, and they're all American young lads. And we went to Islay, and we actually got a sort of industry special privilege tour of Brew, because my ex-girlfriend, she has a little cottage industry style gin distillery in her farmhouse there, and her neighbor actually does the tours for Brew. So we all got this very nice tour and got to hear the Brew story, and we visited other other distilleries. We went to Bunnahaven and looked out across the water, across the channel to Jura, and they've got this massive, you've got this pier with a rocky shore, and it was a beautiful,
beautiful part of the country.
Yeah, very, very, very nice. And they were all three of them were absolutely blown away. They absolutely loved it. And so I definitely agree that it's very exciting to really learn about whiskey and see where it comes from and stuff.
Yeah, there's lots of different areas where whiskey is made in Scotland now. It's just expanded, and distilleries are kind of popping up all the time. But I will say, I mean, going to Speyside and seeing that region, and going to Islay and seeing that region is pretty much on the whiskey must-do list. It's just the home of iconic whiskey, and it's just a beautiful place to visit. It shows Scotland off in a really good light. It's beautiful there.
Missing it right now so much. Usually there. I know.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate they're having to cancel a lot of festivals and different things that really bring a lot of tourists to those areas and support the local economy.
Well, I was going to add, one of my biggest heartbreaks of COVID was, and Nicholas knows this, I was about 15 days out from doing a whirlwind tour from Inverness to Edinburgh to Jura, and the whole thing got canceled because everything shut down. And I'm just determined. I've been to Islay, but I am determined to get to Jura.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was supposed to be in all over Scotland with Cindi this month, and that all got canceled. We were supposed to film and do whiskey tastings, but alas, 2021.
I've lived in the States since 2010, and this is the first time, probably the longest time that I've not gone back to Scotland. Now I can't go back to Scotland just based on COVID, and I've never been homesick the entire time I've lived in the United States. And now, because I know I can't go, and I'm spending more time speaking to my friends and family because everybody's now working from home, and people get time to actually reach out and say, oh yeah, let's jump on a Zoom call, or let's chat online. And I'm so homesick. Like I've actually had my wife every week making a different Scottish home recipe from family members who've been sending things over. So I've had great homemade soup. I've had millionaire shortbread. We had tablet. It's been wonderful. But it's just not the same as having it in Scotland. And it goes back to the point of why does whiskey taste better in Scotland? Because the water tastes better in Scotland. So when you add water to your whiskey in Scotland, it just tastes better, which is fascinating because my whole life growing up, I grew up with people putting Robinson's orange or blackcurrant syrups into the water sources, and then you come out here for a little bit and then you go back to Scotland and you taste the water right out the tap, and it's like, this is magnificent.
Well, one of the jokes is every time I go to Scotland, which I'm with you, Nicholas. I was there so frequently in the last couple of years, it felt like a summer home, and now it's, we can't go. But every time I go to Scotland, my hair looks fantastic because the water is just so good there. So it's so soft and just, so wonderful.
And so on that point, I see that some of you are drinking an adult beverage. And so I wanted to know, what is your favorite go-to drink, whether it's beer or whiskey or otherwise? Let's see. Alastair, you want to go first?
My office, my speakeasy, so to speak, in a manner of speaking, totally not to get in trouble with. It's legit. It's not. We're not selling any whiskey here or anything like that. I don't want anyone to misunderstand. But anyway, we're in this warehouse where we have this little relaxation place, which is actually really the employee break room, is what we technically call it for the record. So we have a container box with all the canned beer in there. So I just run in there and grab 6 packs of this, 4 packs of that. Today it was one of our core beers, which is called Cutting Bracken, a brown ale, which is very nice. And that kind of thing is what appeals to me. And I do like all the cask ale, which is gentle, the old man beer, as they say. We've got the King's Taxes, Scottish export, the equivalent of export, like an 80 shilling. We've got a very low alcohol, 3.5 ordinary bitter, which you can have plenty of those without any problem. We have all kinds of other bitters. We have an ESB, just like Fuller's. equivalent of Fuller's ESB. We have one that actually is a replication of the brewery in Yorkshire, Timothy Taylor's. They have a pale ale called the Landlord. So we did a version of that. Our first brewer wanted to replicate that. So that's like a Yorkshire pale ale, we called it. And it's not like a West Coast American pale ale at all. It doesn't have that hop zing that the pale ales have here, but it's very nice and goes down smoothly. So those are the kind of things I drink.
All right. And David, what about you? What's your favorite go-to?
I'm slightly biased. I am. No, it is funny. Like I've always kind of, even growing up when we were kids, when I say kids, when we were in college and starting to go to bars when we were 18, 19, it was whiskey I was drinking. It was probably with Coke and just having a good time at college. I went to University of Stirling back in the olden days. One of the best university bars, I think, in the country. We'll just leave that there. A lot of stories. But I remember when I got the job with Balvenie 7 years ago, I remember going back and talking to my wife and saying, there's going to be a lot of travel. We're going to be moving away. It's like, is this something we want to do if I'm going to be? And she basically looked over at my home bar and it was all different single malts. How am I going to tell you not to do this when this is what you like? But to be quite honest, honestly, the mood in the situation determines. I mean, if I'm at MacLeod's, we're having a good time, we're having a good beer, and we're after the football, we go to MacLeod's after the games and have a good time. Sometimes if you're a nice cocktail bar, you want a nice Boulevardier or something nice whiskey drink there. But if I'm at home, it's probably going to be a single malt. If I'm just sitting and relaxing, it's probably going to be a single malt.
Dan, what's your favorite go-to?
So one great advantage of being a whiskey podcaster is people send you whiskey. So, and I used to have, until February, I had a no drinking at home rule because I travel so much.
Is that your home bar behind you, Dan? Not to interrupt, I see there.
It's a replica.
Usually I'm not jealous of anybody. I might be jealous of that one. Oh, I don't see what's happening.
Yeah, I've been, like everybody, I've been, exclusively at home for 150 odd days. So I'm drinking at home more. So I'm blessed to have some very nice whiskey. So my sort of day-to-day drinker whiskey, if I want to have a drink and I've got maybe some company coming around, sitting at a safe distance in my garden, and they don't really know what they're doing, we'll probably drink a Cardew or a Singleton. They're the ones that I get through volume-wise the most of. It's my sort of day-to-day drinker. But if I'm treating myself, then it's probably not just because I've done so much work with William Grant over the years, but they have given me lots of bottles over the years when I was a diplomat, and now I'm doing this. And so probably a Balvenie of 17 or 21 years old will probably be what I would treat myself to.
You're a man of fine taste, Dan, so you're.
Yeah. But the other thing is, obviously, I live in the valley, so for those in Scotland, we had a bit of a heat wave recently. So we got up to 121 here, which is 49.4 degrees Celsius, which is not it's not uncold. So we needed. I've been drinking a lot more cocktails than usual because it's just so hot here. And I always was quite careful with my whiskey, and I didn't really like to put things in it, but I've been doing a lot more drinking of things with ice in and having longer drinks because I think you sort of need to in these heats. Well, I've discovered the Godfather seems to be the one that's getting me through at the moment. So normally with Johnny Walker Black and then some nice amaretto and lots of ice. And it's a wonderful drink at the end of a hot day in a garden in California.
Wow. I have to try this. Nicholas, what's your favorite go-to drink?
Well, at 49.5 Celsius, I don't know what I'd be drinking, but that's what we call in Glasgow taps off. So you get your shirt off and you get out there and turn as beetroot red as humanly possible. Right now,
we say that when it's 15 degrees, don't it?
Right now, I'm just trying to work through this barrel. This is what I've been drinking since COVID started. So this is not my first barrel that I've been drinking my way. No, I'm joking. Right, funnily enough, kind of like everybody, you know, it's actually been quite nice. I almost stopped drinking single malt whiskey at home for about 4 or 5 years, but similar. I think, Dan, you were saying that when you're out on the road, you know, you're out all the time, and it's, you know, it's easy just to, you know, drink whiskey with people and socialise. So at home, I had a really kind of hard and fast rule not to drink spirits at home, and that very, very quickly went out the window in early March. So like everybody else, and my favourite whiskey is the next one. So I don't have any particular preferences. There are a couple of fantastic whiskies that have been mentioned. You know, Balvenie 21-year-old is absolutely one of the best single malts out there. You know, I'm drinking a Glenfiddich 30 at the moment. I'm partial to some Dalmore King Alexander, and you know, I'm looking at my whiskey collections here and just saying, you know, I've honestly not met a Scotch whiskey that I don't like. So I'm one of those people that is, I think, like most Scotch whiskey drinkers, we're very promiscuous. We go around and try lots of different single malts out there. We don't walk in and just drink the same thing over and over and over again. Vodka drinkers are very brand loyal. Scotch whiskey drinkers not so loyal. So you know, that's part of the fun. You know, I think part of the fun is going out there and like David said earlier, there's so many flavors that, you know, you'd be cheating yourself of an opportunity if you didn't try and taste new and exciting things as they get released. And that's one of the things, especially from the Scotch whisky industry, that we're seeing so much of, which makes it exciting now, is that we're really innovating, and we're driving innovation right through lots of different distilleries doing fun stuff with oak, fun stuff with their distillation, fun stuff with spirit, and long may that continue.
Absolutely. Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
I do. I mean, I have to say these guys are killing me, because something that I guess I should come out with this. Both Nicholas and David are former colleagues, so I have spent a lot of time with both of them. Yeah, you know, I think when I joined the single malt industry, it was the real emergence, especially in the US, of mixing single malts and really enjoying them in cocktails. And I'm a huge lover of cocktails. I love cocktail culture. I love being very experimental with beverages. And the joke with me and David Laird is we are both huge fans of the Boulevardier. So we would go out together and we'd literally sit down and order like 2 Boulevardiers, please. But you know, coming from an American background, I have a great love for American rye. It is probably my second go-to whiskey when I'm not drinking single malt. And the challenge with a boozy cocktail like a Boulevardier is that you can't just throw any whiskey into it. Like the whiskey I'm sipping now, which is the Dalmore 15, would die in a Boulevardier. It would have no body, it would have no angles. So when you're mixing a cocktail like that with a single malt, you really need to go for something overproof, or just a higher proof. And American rye does that, and there's several single malts that, you know, you're doing cask strength. I've been drinking recently, it's like a Boulevardier variation. It's a split modifier of the Dalmore Portwood, which comes in at 46.5%, and then doing a split modifier of Carpano Antica, Campari, and a little Luxardo. Unfortunately, that's also quite a fattening beverage. So like my cohorts, I've been trying to not, like, you know, expand my range while here in quarantine. I will say though, I became a huge fan of the highball, very traditional Scotch highball. You basically do like a solid pour of any single malt, add ice, fill it to the top with soda water, and then garnish with a complementary citrus something. So in the sense of the Dalmore, I would typically use an orange. Maybe for something like Glenfiddich, I would use a lemon or a lime. But the magic of that is that a lot of these single malts have hidden aromas and hidden flavors. And one that I encountered recently, I was doing a project with Rory Glasgow, who represents Aberfeldy. And he gave me a bottle of Aberfeldy, and my husband got into it, of course. And he started making highballs with it. And he runs over to me and he's like, "Do you smell this?" And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "It smells like chocolate milk." And I'm like, "What?" And there was something about introducing the soda to the Aberfeldy that was bringing up all these layers and flavors of chocolate milk. And to go back to Dan's point, and there's a huge Los Angeles contingency here right now, it has been very hot. And I like enjoying my single malt. So if I'm not going to do a heavier, boozier cocktail like a Boulevardier, I'm going to take any one of these expressions, any one of these incredible brands, and I'm going to do it in a highball because it's a long drink, it's a cold drink, and you often learn more about the single malt because of the fact that there is gas rising from the bottom, bringing those aromas up to the top.
It's interesting because what Nick we do, and I know also at MacLeod's when you're working at the bar, people think you're probably drinking beer and having whiskey all the time. And it's not really like that when you're out working because you're having to work, you're socializing, you're hosting the events. So when I come home, it is my kind of moment to actually slow down, actually think about the whiskey and have that little time on my own to actually appreciate it and not just be taking a little sip and then moving on. And also when I get to try other whiskeys that I've got from friends or I bought because I thought they were interesting. But there's something just really satisfying about a really good European smith. At MacLeod's, it's so refreshing, and it probably that takes me back to Scotland even more than whiskey does, because that's the one thing you would probably start off drinking with your friends when you were at the bar. It's just a really refreshing beer.
I want to ask Kelsey what her favorite go-to drink is, because I kind of already know, but.
Oh my goodness. So earlier today, we were interviewing Ross King. He's a dear friend of ours. And I was at his house the other day, and his whiskey collection is super impressive. But I must say, my go-to, this is what I had at his house. He had a Balvenie 21, and I just drank that all night, and it was delicious. But it was like Nicholas is saying, I love trying new things. There's so many Scotch whiskeys out there. I'm still learning more a lot. I just learned the other day from a person we interviewed, Daniel B., who his favorite thing to do is take whiskey and put soda water in it and see how the flavors and everything expands. So I love what Jennifer was saying about these cocktails and different things you can do. I really want to try this milk chocolate cocktail. Chocolate milk, sorry, that sounds amazing. But Cindi, what's your go-to?
Oh goodness, you already know. I drink a lot of Scotch. People give me Scotch all the time. Although, David, I could really do with another 21-year-old Balvenie. I forgot how that tastes.
Dan has them all in his back bar. Look behind his screen right now. He's ready to go. No, we should be able to help you out there.
I do love whiskey, but I love MacLeod's. Actually, Alastair can answer this question for me. He knows exactly what I like to drink there.
He's absolutely obsessed with the King's Taxes, which is, it was one of our first beer, one of the first beers to be introduced 6.5 years ago. It has continued to be one of our best-selling beers to this day. It's on cask. We have one Scotsman called Peter Adams from Edinburgh, who Ubers over to our place virtually every day, and that's all he drinks. So
tell him not to drink it all. Leave me some.
Between him and Cindi, what makes it such a big seller. It's a kind of it's like a brown ale, but we used to call it a 60 shilling, but it's actually an 80 shilling. It's more like a McEwan's export, if you like. Alastair,
do you ship your beers around the country?
We're not the country, but we do. Just lately, we've actually just hooked up with a service that will take it statewide. Yeah.
Very nice.
So all of California. And the shipping's expensive, but some people don't care. They've got disposable income. So Jenny's become a slave to the things, putting the beer in the box and the postage and getting it out every day.
Right. Well, I want to jump ahead to the next question that Jennifer kind of led us into. So what are some of the positive factors? And then on the flip side, what are some of the challenges that you're facing right now in your respective subsets of the brew and spirits industry? Dan, do you want to start first?
Yeah, so it's interesting at the moment. So my day job, I run a technology company, and we specialized in virtual and augmented reality events and trade shows. And we lost 100% of our revenue in the beginning of lockdown, and with no prospects of recovery. So we've completely changed the business to something else. And obviously a lot of people have had very extreme versions of that. I mean, obviously that's my day job, which is more important, but my podcast's gone the opposite way, because guests who are really hard to track down are suddenly at home, and I know they're at home, and they know that I know that they're at home. So I've had a couple of people who are in the entertainment business who normally are on set somewhere, and I call them up and say, can you do the podcast? They can't say, I'm shooting in Atlanta this week, because I know they're at home. So we've got great guests on. I thought numbers would drop because people aren't commuting, and a lot of people used to listen to podcasts on their drive to work and so on. But actually, podcast has been running a year, and we've had 50% of our total listens have happened since about April. So our numbers have gone up massively, and the quality of our guests, and now the frequency of the podcast, because I'm doing them more often because people are more available. But it's fascinating because every episode begins with how are you getting on during COVID, and we've had people from the whiskey business, from the travel business, and some of the extreme stories are fascinating and worrying. We got obviously travel writers who can't leave their home and are either very bullish about what's going to happen in the future or incredibly worried. We've had other business people talking about how they've lost all their revenue, how people have lost jobs. So it's been a really sort of powerful time, and people want to talk about what's going on. One of the just sort of interesting one related to drinking. We had a guest on who was talking about, we did an episode about drink driving, somebody whose son was tragically killed last year by a drink driver. And one of the things we were talking about is drink driving is massively up during this pandemic because people are drinking more, people are scared to get into Ubers. And so there's a lot of people going around each other's houses drinking a lot because there's so much to drink for, and then driving home. So there's a lot of sort of, and I know sales of alcohol are up, but there's some flip sides to that as well. It's a very difficult time in lots of different ways.
Nicholas, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yes, similar, I think, to something Dan said. Is how do you pivot? Like, how do you continue to find new and innovative ways to bring what we love to do to life? And it's something that I'm just about to launch a new business with some partners. Which we've created this kind of virtual and digital experience to bring people to Scotland and to come and see some of the amazing things around Scotland and drink. We visit a distillery and we get to do all these things, and it's all done through production and this world of green screen and things like that. Like, believe it or not, this is not my basement, as Jenny said before the show started. I wish it was. But, we've found ways to kind of develop content and create things that are really exciting. So when we launched the Dram Good Laddies, it's really going to help do all of that. And it's about how quickly can we move in from the world of standing in front of, 50 to, 5,000 guests in a usual month for us as an event company. How do we then pivot to saying, okay, well, if you're going to be sitting at home, you're going to be sitting in front of a television screen, how can we generate an experience that still feels of value, that doesn't feel just like the fatigue of getting on business calls, but actually something that's kind of exciting and innovative, and that's something that I've been putting a ton of time, energy, and effort into to develop a platform for it, to create the digital aspects and the technology back side of things. So that's all new to me, but it's been really fun, and it means that when we go live with our new venture later on in October, it's going to move and pivot all towards that world, and I see it being that being the foreseeable future. I think there's this expectation that we're going to all run back out into the field, and I want to go. I don't want to stand in front of a group of people anytime in the near future. Not because I don't love it, of course. That's I'm a social butterfly and I'm needy and I crave people's attention. So it breaks my heart that I can't do it in person. But the flip side of that is that then, through this kind of challenge drives innovation. And with innovation, then hopefully, we'll find clever alternative ways to make people feel engaged and connected. And that to me is the challenge. And I like that. I like the challenge.
Jennifer, what are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more with Nicholas. I'm actually doing a presentation next week internally called Zero to Digital in 6 months. And what I mean by that is that we, the ambassador team that I'm on, had to pivot so quickly to go from this live model and this in-room model to all of a sudden being comfortable with technology, being comfortable on screen, being comfortable presenting whiskey on screen. I mean, it was a big learning curve. I was very lucky because I was an actress. So I've spent a lot of time prior to my whiskey life on screen. So it wasn't that painful for me. And I really understand working within this medium. But as Nicholas was mentioning, it's this reinvention of the wheel. And every day waking up and saying, look, no one just wants to watch me, you know, smell this on camera for an hour. I mean, that there's nothing interesting about that. And how we can keep engaging folks in both a way that is exciting, emotional, and innovative. So I recently launched a little series. It is partially for my own fun and joy, and partially, you know, to talk about the Dalmore and Jura, but it's called The Long and Short of It. And this platform allowed me to do something I've never been able to do in real life, which is to pair a wine and a whiskey together. Because I would never run a tasting for, whiskey enthusiasts or wine enthusiasts where we were pairing that much alcohol together at one time. It's just not a thing that is responsible and or is legal in the state of California. But what it's done is it's allowed me to explore whiskey in a different way because I'm working with an advanced somm. So that's like the first hook. It's like if you were having dinner and you started with a wine and then you moved to a nightcap, what would be the perfect pairing? Take the food out of the equation. And then the third portion of that is to bring in a guest, and Deanne is going to be in an upcoming episode, that has nothing to do with wine or whiskey, that has some other discipline. Maybe they're a musician, maybe they are an art historian. And to pair something that is visceral and physical and enjoyable that has nothing to do with wine or spirits. And honestly, the whole concept behind this was, to piggyback on Nicholas's comment, to be innovative, to be engaging, to be human, to offer an opportunity where I take a little bit of my brand hat off and I get to show a little bit more of my zanier personality. And also along the lines of what Nicholas was saying, when you look at the cost, the overall cost of shipping me around the United States or shipping me around the world and, you know, putting me in my box, taking me out of my box, you know, go talk, little lady, and talk about whiskey. That's an enormous expense. So the cost of producing this weekly show that's going to run for 9 weeks has been so minimal. And I've already reached over 150 people. So I think that is the success. As much as this is difficult, as much as we miss each other, I am able to have so much more connection with people at such a lower cost to my company. And I have to say, also, as Nicholas said, I am definitely enjoying a little bit more time at home, because at the end of last year, I was traveling 3 weeks a month, and that takes a toll on you on a daily basis. So it's a pleasure to like put on a blazer and show up for you guys today, because there was no stress involved. I just sat down in my living room. So hidden blessings in an unexpected year.
So Alastair, I wanted you to talk about this because you have the brewery, and right before this happened, you got the pizza kitchen, which was extremely helpful and amazing pizza, by the way. But you guys have really been through a lot over there because of the pandemic. How have you adapted? What are you guys doing?
Well, we are thankfully considered an essential business and have been from the start. And were able to, for a very nominal fee, get a license to use the entire parking lot. The city did a program called LA Al Fresco, and it was to do with extending your alcohol drinking footprint beyond what it originally was. It includes like French cafe style tables on sidewalks and even in traffic lanes and pedestrian precincts and stuff like that. So we were able to do that, and this being Friday, we put out enough tables for, we actually have 150 seats around all these barrels, like, old bourbon barrels and 55-gallon oil drums and rickety little folding tables and very miscellaneous types of tables and stuff all over the parking lot, spaced 6 feet apart. And we actually probably get close to about 120 to 140 people. We're actually very popular because we're one of the few games in town. All the bars that don't have food are closed. The restaurants that don't have outdoor seating, like no patios, no car parks and stuff. They're all closed. It's just not worth their while. So yeah, we've been actually very busy, and really we have no need to do anything virtual. It's not really, we just continue to do our old-fashioned, very kind of human interaction, good old-fashioned fun. We're not playing board games, we're not playing darts, no cornhole, giant Jenga, all that kind of thing, high-touch stuff. We've eliminated that. No peanuts. We used to have the monkey nuts where you threw the shells on the floor. All that is gone for now. But people don't care. They just come and they eat pizza, and our menu is actually getting a little bit more diverse now. We got meatballs, meatball sliders. We've got beer cheese and pita chips and all kinds of different things. So they eat the food, they drink beer, and they just meet friends and socialize. Friends, theoretically and hopefully from their own bubble, their own safe family group. Some of them do get a bit frisky, and we have to limit them to 6 people per table. But they oftentimes try to do 7, 8, 9, and we have to split them up, and they're pulling tables together. But we're all trained. We've trained all the employees to not allow that, because we can be at any moment by the Southern California or the LA County Health Department to make sure that we're in compliance, which we have been. 99% in compliance. We've been took it all very, very seriously, and we've been very. It's been very effective. We're actually doing just great.
I had a deep breath there when you said we're only going to allow people who get frisky 5 or 6. I was so glad you said people at a table and not beer.
Yeah, right.
David, what about you? Because when I reached out to you, you said you recently got promoted. So tell us about William Grant & Sons. What are some of the challenges and positive things that you're facing?
Yeah, so I'm working on the luxury spirits side of the business now, which is our kind of older whiskey side. And that's the interesting thing with everything that's going on, that the luxury side of thing is very robust. It's doing well. And I think a lot of it's to do with there is a lot that's not going to wait from that, and some are not going to bounce back, and other industries too who are not doing well. But there is another side, like the tech industry. I mean, Dan was speaking about before another time, and they're doing very well. So there's people out there who are looking for things, and luxury vacations have been cancelled and different things. So they're willing to spend that on higher whiskey and different things like that. So we're doing really well in the kind of higher end whiskey side of things. On the other side of that, we work with a lot of restaurants, and there's a bit of an emotional toll right now because you're speaking to a lot of friends, because we work mostly in relationship is how we work. And a lot of our friends and colleagues and people we know have open bars and bartenders, they've just no job and there's nothing on the horizon. There's certain bars like MacLeod is doing well, but you talk to another place who doesn't have a patio and they are not open yet. Business is actually doing pretty well. Drake's in the building home, which is good for the brands because it shows that they've got good loyalty, but who've lost their jobs. It's tough.
And I wanted to also let you know, if you guys haven't already caught on to this, we just started this, but so ScotWeek, we're trying to keep, people engaged and watching what we're doing. So we decided to start Whiskey Wednesdays live at 5, and we do it on Instagram, our Instagram accounts, and we would love to have you all join us or individually join us for a Whiskey Wednesday live at 5. That would be phenomenal.
It would be a pleasure. Just let us know what the dates are.
We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll
Every
coordinate.
Wednesday, I'm guessing.
By the way, this is how he is when you work with him too. That's that quick wit. No, I did want to chime in a little bit though on what David just said, which is that we're seeing a very similar thing in my company where there are people who are they are of means, and that has not changed, and they are still buying what is our more rare casks, the Baccarat collection, which is our 35, 40, 45-year-olds. But then we're also seeing the majority of volume happening at the lower part of the range, so Dalmore 12 and Jura 10. Jura 10 has been something that I believed for a long time was going to, for lack of a better word, pop off in the US. I knew that it was going to be successful. And right before all of this happened, we were seeing a ton of traction happening in the on-premise or bars and restaurants here in LA. And then that didn't go away. It just shifted to retail. So now we're seeing Jura 10 just be picked up in droves. It's very affordable. It is a lower age statement, so people feel like a little more comfortable drinking it as a daily dram. And it's something that a lot of people haven't heard of before, so it has that like, ooh, cachet. But it's interesting because, you know, to reflect what David said, the middle has fallen out. It's everything that's above $50 and below $5,000 is what is not selling. And I believe that some of the reflection of that is so many whiskey enthusiasts get to know that range, that mid-range in restaurants. And they can experiment by buying, you know, a 2-ounce dram versus, you know, having to go out and buy a bottle and not know if they like it. So we're losing, the phrase I used the other day was we're losing our billboard. We're losing those places that may have a whole selection of the Dalmore, a whole selection of Balcony. And it's literally how we, on some level, advertise what we do. And I don't know the solution to that. I'm beginning a partnership with several restaurants where I'm running virtual tastings through restaurants. So I'm helping to support them, and utilize their mailing list. But also, in the end, it's something like this. So you would see me in this platform versus see me speaking, you know, in person.
Well, wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We really greatly appreciate it. Thanks for supporting ScotWeek and being on. And Nicholas, Dan, Alastair, David, and Jennifer, we are so grateful. And can you let everyone know real quick as we say goodbye, how to find you online, your social media, your websites, whatever, however you would like people to find you?
Our email, we can be looked up just by search on MacLeod. Make sure it's MAC, McLeod Ale. Will get you to everything to do with us. We're big on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. That's basically it. McLeod Ale.
I'm an easy one, so it's United States of Dramerica is the podcast. If you want to hear me drink a Balvenie 21 with David this week, or hear Alastair telling his story 3 weeks ago, or Jennifer, our only double guest, talking about a couple of different things, pre-pandemic and during the pandemic. Nicholas not been invited yet, but maybe will be after today's performance. Find us wherever you find your podcasts.
Our brands are all over with Balvenie, Glenfiddich, Hendricks. If you Google any of those names, they will come up. My own personal handle is Laird of LA. You can find a whole bunch of beautiful pictures of expensive whiskey in very luxurious places, of rooftops around LA and different things. Kind of more of a aspirational site than a show-off site, I like to think. It's where would you want to come drink a whiskey when you were in LA? So on there, to have people reach out to me if they need recommendations of where to go and where to have a nice whiskey in LA, we can definitely guide them that way. But yeah, at Laird of LA is the website. And
nice and simple, just at www.thewhiskeydog.com. Or now that I know that this was an edition, apparently after my edition, you can find me at United States of Dramerica in a week or so. So that's good to know. Thanks for that. So yeah, just thewhiskeydog.com for everything that we do.
I am the Jennifer Wren on Instagram, and I don't know how I got so lucky. Just got that title. And if you just go to that site, you can find all the links to the Dalmore and Jura and some of the other whiskeys that I do occasionally talk to, like Shackleton. And then also, if you are interested in watching the show that we're doing over the next 9 weeks, you can follow #LongShortLive. Everything is being attached to that hashtag, and that will give the links to watch me and my talented colleague Beth Hickey do wine, and then our surprising list of guests.
Amazing. And I just want to thank Kelsey, Deanne, for putting this all together. You're so amazing, Kelsey. Thank you. Thank you for being on top of everything and very organized. We look forward to having you on Whiskey Wednesdays live at 5. We'll get you scheduled for that. And you can follow ScotWeek. So if you go to scotweek.org, you'll find all of our social media platforms through there. So please follow us, like, and subscribe to our social media platforms. Anything else, Kelsey?
Yes, and just thank you so much for tuning in for Scottish International Week. We're so excited to partner with Scottish Business Network. So thank you all to our amazing panelists, and I'm so excited to go drink more whiskey.
Yes, and anytime you guys need people to come drink with you, just let us know. Very happy. Thank you all. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye for now.
Yep.
Come on.
Bye.
Thank you.